Hello, I'm Willa Naylor, a young conservative abroad, and today I'd like to welcome you onto my first episode of this Substack podcast. It's going to be more casual and less restrained than my usual written essays, which I post here on Substack, have been posting for quite some time. I think we've passed the 1 year anniversary, or we're coming up to it. Today I'd like to briefly talk about the awful lie that was put forth by the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, yesterday as she announced her defection to Reform UK. She claimed, and I don't think she's recanted on this claim, that the Conservative Party's promise to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, if in government, I think when in government, is a lie. That is plainly untrue. The Conservative Party is united behind the plan to leave the ECHR. The membership, most members are behind it. There hasn't been any resistance from backbench MPs to this plan to leave the ECHR. And of course, the shadow cabinet under the leadership of Kemi Badenoch is in favour of leaving the ECHR. Now, why might Suella Braverman be saying this? Well, obviously, number one, it's scaremongering. She is trying to sow distrust in the Conservative Party among the British people. But I think that the British people are much more intelligent than that. I think that the British people should trust, and do trust, the Conservative Party when we say that we want to leave the ECHR. She may also be saying it because we did take a long time to get here on the ECHR. I personally have been in favour of leaving the ECHR since around the summer of 2024. But that's because we are a cautious party, and this is actually a good thing about the Conservative Party, that we took a long time to come up with this plan to leave the ECHR. We are not an undecisive party, an indecisive party. We are a very decisive party, but we will never decide something, especially under the leadership of Kemi Badenoch. We will never decide something unless we've already thought it through. The party did take a while to see if there were alternatives to leaving the ECHR. Leaving the ECHR is a big thing. So the party leadership wanted to see if there were perhaps easier, softer alternatives to leaving the ECHR, and of course there are none. That is why it is current Conservative Party policy, very recent Conservative Party policy, that we should leave the ECHR, but that the UK should leave the ECHR, and this has not been met with, wide-scale resistance from members, from MPs, from other officials within the Conservative Party. So I think that people should definitely trust Kemi Badenoch and other members of the Shadow Cabinet and Tory MPs when we say that a Conservative government will leave the ECHR. And I think that most of the members who perhaps are uneasy about leaving the ECHR are certainly not pro-current ECHR. They probably want, reform of the ECHR, but they're definitely not in favour of the current form of the ECHR. but I think that most members are in favour of leaving the ECHR. That is Conservative Party policy. That is going to happen if the Conservative Party gets into government, when the Conservative Party gets into government, in my opinion. And on the ECHR, I'd actually like to talk about why Britain should leave the ECHR. The ECHR is a foreign entity, a foreign continental entity which is dictating British law. British law when it comes to human rights, when it comes to immigration issues. And this is not how the British system works. This is an entity which is taking power, which is taking sovereignty away from Parliament and putting it into the hands of judges and European bureaucrats. Now, we should leave the ECHR primarily because we will then have the opportunity to create our own human rights legislation, which will leave less loopholes for potential immigrants coming to the UK. So that is the primary reason for leaving the ECHR. But I'd also like to talk to people who are maybe not so fussed about immigration, because even if you are in that camp, you don't really care about immigration, maybe you're pro-immigration, you should still be in favour of leaving the ECHR, because it is a vandalism of the British Constitution. We should all love the British Constitution, which endured, and which endured far longer than any European institution. The British Constitution has evolved and has become a very, very excellent form of delivering government for the people. So even if you want to have, identical immigration policy to the ECHR, and this is not going to happen under a Conservative government, but I'm talking more broadly about why Britain should leave the ECHR, it is still a good thing to leave the ECHR, because we will then have control over our own human rights legislation, and we will be in line with the British Constitution, because the ECHR, as it is taking power away from the British people who elect their parliament and into other European hands. And that is a vandalism, that is an abuse of our Constitution. And it must stop, and I hope it stops soon. And I know that if the Conservative Party gets into government, when the Conservative Party gets into government, when Kemi Badenoch is Prime Minister of this country, we will leave the ECHR. That's about it from me today, and I hope that you, or on this episode, there may be another episode which I will publish later today. But I hope that you enjoyed the first episode of my podcast here on Substack. Thank you for listening.